The year was 2157, and humanity had been a small fish in the big pond of the Galactic Confederation for almost 30 years. Earth ships were considered primitive, Earth technology laughable, and Earth military forces barely worth mentioning in strategic discussions. Most alien diplomats treated humans with polite dismissal at best, open contempt at worst. Alan Russell stood at the viewport of Luna Naval Yards, watching the stars with narrowed eyes. His uniform was wrinkled from another 20-hour work session, and empty coffee cups littered his workstation. As commander of special projects, he had spent the last 3 years studying every regulation, guideline, and technical specification the Confederation had ever published about warship construction. "You're still here?" Admiral Patricia Donovan asked as she entered his office. Her gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her posture perfect despite the late hour. Ellen didn't turn from the viewport. "I found it, Pat." The way through. She moved to stand beside him, her reflection serious in the reinforced glass. "Found what, exactly?" "The loophole." Actually, several loopholes. Ellen pressed a button, and holographic schematics filled the air between them. The Confederation regulations define weapons based on how their member species understand them. Energy projectors, mass drivers, explosive yield. They never accounted for human approaches. Patricia studied the rotating diagram with growing interest. They would say this breaks the rules. But it doesn't. Not technically. Alan highlighted several sections of the design. This compression drive stores potential energy in subspace. Not a weapon by their definition, just a propulsion system. These gravitational anchors. Navigation tools, officially. The dimensional fold generators. Safety systems to prevent spatial ruptures. But together, they form a weapons platform more powerful than anything in the Confederation fleet. Patricia finished, a slow smile spreading across her face. Alan nodded, and it would all be completely legal, on paper. The next morning, they presented the concept to a select committee of Earth's military leadership. The room was silent after their presentation, until General Samwright let out a low whistle. "The Vraks would lose their minds if they saw this," he said, referring to the militaristic species that effectively controlled the Confederation fleet. "Which is why they won't see it until it's too late," Alan replied. "We build it in sections. Each component looks harmless on its own." "Project approved," said Fleet Admiral Joe Lewis after a brief discussion. "But keep it quiet. Very quiet." Work began immediately. Luna Naval Yards was officially retooling for commercial vessel production, while deep within the facility, the components of something very different took shape. Alan named the project Defiance, both for the ship itself and for what it represented. 6 weeks later, Alan was checking stress tolerances on the frame when alarms blared throughout the facility. His comm unit buzzed with an emergency code. "Russell here," he answered, heart racing. "Commander, we have a situation," came the tense voice of Lieutenant Greg Wilson. "A diplomatic vessel from the Sarvax just entered orbit and is requesting an immediate inspection tour of our facilities." Alan froze. The Sarvax were close allies of the Vrak's hegemony. "Stall them. Say we're conducting safety protocols. I need 2 hours." He ran through the facility, ordering workers to seal off the Defiance chambers and activate the false wall panels they had installed for just such an emergency. Engineers scrambled to hide evidence, locking away designs and replacing them with decoy projects. Admiral Donovan met him at the main airlock, straightening her uniform. "Do you think they suspect something?" "The timing is too convenient," Alan muttered. "Someone talked, or they detected our power signatures." The airlock cycled open, revealing 3 tall, gray-skinned Sarvax diplomats. Their 4 eyes scanned the humans with unsettling intensity. "Welcome to Luna Naval Yards," Patricia said with practiced diplomacy. "We weren't expecting an inspection today." The lead Sarvax blinked its inner eyelids. "That was precisely the point, Admiral. The Confederation has concerns about unauthorized activities." Ellen kept his face neutral, but his mind was racing. The greatest gamble in human history was just beginning, and their secret was already in danger. The XRVAX inspection lasted 6 nerve-wracking hours. Alan and Patricia led the aliens through carefully prepared areas of the Luna Naval Yards, showing them exactly what they wanted them to see: ordinary ships, standard weapons, and nothing remotely suspicious. When the tall gray beings finally departed, the entire facility breathed a collective sigh of relief. "That was too close," Patricia said as she watched their shuttle disappear into the blackness of space. "We need to move faster now. They'll be watching us more closely." Alan nodded. "I agree. Full production begins tomorrow." The next morning, Olivia Martinez arrived at the yards. As the new chief engineer assigned to the Defiance project, she brought fresh eyes and brilliant ideas. She was short, with curly black hair and hands that never seemed to stay still. "These schematics are impressive," she told Alan after reviewing his designs. "But I think we can push things even further. Look here and here." She pointed to sections of the ship's power distribution network. "We can integrate sonic resonators as communication systems that could shatter enemy hulls if recalibrated." Alan's eyes widened. "That's not in the original specs. The Confederation regulations don't classify sonic technology as weaponry because no species uses sound waves in space combat." Olivia grinned. "They never considered that we might pump those waves through an enemy ship's own hull." Construction ramped up quickly. Deep within the lunar surface, the skeleton of the Defiance took shape. Workers labored in shifts around the clock, many not fully understanding what they were building but sensing its importance. Lieutenant Doug Hamilton, former diplomat and now the project's security officer, established strict protocols. No personal devices were allowed near the construction site. Workers were scanned for recording equipment. Communications were limited and monitored. "We're seeing increased VRAX vessel activity near Jupiter," Doug reported during a weekly security briefing. His blonde hair was cut military short, his face serious. "They're claiming to conduct exercises, but I think they're looking for something." "Looking for us," Alan said quietly. The team worked faster. The Defiance grew section by section, its hull unlike any Earth vessel before it. The compression drive was installed, a massive spherical device that hummed with potential energy. When tested at minimum power, it cracked the reinforced walls of the testing chamber. "Imagine what it will do to an enemy ship," Olivia whispered as they repaired the damage. 2 months into construction, Earth received an official delegation from the Confederation. Ambassador Catherine Wells met with them in the diplomatic center in New Geneva, then immediately requested a private meeting with Alan and Patricia. "They know something's happening," Catherine said without preamble. Her diplomatic uniform was perfectly pressed, but worry lines creased her forehead. The VRAX representative cornered me after the meeting and asked pointed questions about our shipbuilding capacity. "What did you tell them?" Patricia asked. "Nothing useful, but they're suspicious. The Confederation is threatening trade sanctions if we don't allow full inspections of all military facilities." Ellen leaned forward. "We need more time. Just 3 more months." "I'll do what I can," Catherine promised. "But be careful. The VRAX don't play fair when they feel threatened." Back at Luna, the pace intensified. The ship's defensive systems were installed: gravity manipulators that could tear apart molecular bonds, shield projectors that could be inverted into cutting beams, and navigation sensors that doubled as targeting systems of unprecedented accuracy. Olivia worked tirelessly on the final component, the dimensional anchor. On paper, it was classified as a safety system to prevent spatial anomalies. In reality, it could lock enemy ships in normal space, preventing their escape. "If this works," she told Alan late one night as they calibrated the system, "we'll change the balance of power in the entire galaxy." Alan nodded, dark circles under his eyes. "And make some powerful enemies." Neither of them noticed the small maintenance drone hovering in the corner of the room, its camera focused on their work, transmitting data to a Vrax receiver in orbit around Mars. The alarm klaxons shattered the normal hum of activity at Luna Naval Yards. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie glow as personnel ran to battle stations. "Report," Admiral Donovan barked as she entered the command center. Lieutenant Greg Wilson looked up from his console, face pale. "Vrax battle group detected entering the Sol system, ma'am. 7 warships, including a dreadnought. Their official reason: they claim to be conducting routine exercises within Confederation space," Greg replied, his voice tight. "But their course brings them directly to Earth in 6 hours. Alan Russell burst into the room. "They know. Someone leaked information about the Defiance." "Can they prove anything?" Patricia asked. "They don't need to. They'll just claim inspection rights, find our ship, and declare us in violation of Confederation law." Patricia's jaw set in a hard line. "Then we launch now." Alan stared at her. "The Defiance is only 80% complete. The hull is finished and the main systems are online, but we haven't run full integration tests. It's now or never, Commander." Patricia turned to the communications officer. "Send the launch order. And find me Captain Frank Miller. If anyone can make that ship work, it's him." Captain Frank Miller arrived within the hour. He was not what most people expected in a decorated Navy captain. He was of average height with a slight build, thinning brown hair, and kind eyes that hid a razor-sharp tactical mind. His reputation for unorthodox thinking had kept him from further promotion, but made him perfect for this mission. "So this is the ship everyone's talking about," he said as he gazed at the Defiance through the launch bay window. The vessel looked deceptively simple: sleek lines, minimal external features, and a pearly white hull that seemed to shift colors as you watched. "Can you fly her, Captain?" Ellen asked. Frank smiled. "I can fly anything. The question is whether she'll do what you designed her to do when we meet the Vrax." "There's only one way to find out," Patricia said. As the Defiance prepared for launch, Communications Officer Heather Lewis intercepted a troubling transmission. Her dark eyes widened as she decoded the message. "Captain, Admiral," she called out, "I've broken a coded Vrax transmission. They're not just coming for an inspection. They're planning to disable our shipyards and destroy the Defiance before it can leave orbit." Frank's expression hardened. "How long until they're in weapons range?" 3 hours at their current speed," Heather replied. "Then we have 2 hours to prepare," Frank said. "Crew assignments now. Essential personnel only." The next 2 hours passed in controlled chaos. The minimal crew of 50 boarded the Defiance. Systems were brought online. Olivia Martinez worked frantically to complete the final power connections, while Alan provided last-minute guidance on systems that had never been tested in actual space. "The dimensional anchor isn't stable," Olivia warned. "Don't try to use it in combat." "Noted," Frank replied calmly. "What about the compression drive?" "It works, but I wouldn't push it beyond 60% capacity." At exactly 2 hours before Vrax arrival, the launch bay doors opened. The Defiance slipped out into space, its engines glowing with a soft blue light that seemed too gentle for such a revolutionary vessel. "Set course to intercept the Vrax battle group," Frank ordered once they cleared the lunar orbit. Lieutenant Jack Collins, the navigator, looked up in surprise. "Sir, we're heading toward them." "The best defense is a good offense, Lieutenant," Frank said with a small smile. "Let's introduce ourselves before they reach Earth." The Defiance accelerated smoothly, quickly surpassing speeds that should have been impossible for a ship its size. On the bridge, the crew worked in tense silence, aware they were making history, if they survived. When the Vrax fleet appeared on long-range sensors, Frank ordered the ship to full battle readiness. "Sir," Heather called out suddenly. "They're deploying fighter craft. A full squadron coming our way. They're not waiting for diplomatic niceties," Tactical Officer Ben Sullivan observed dryly. "Orders, Captain." Frank leaned forward in his command chair. Let's show them what a human ship can really do. The Vrax fighter squadron approached the Defiance with absolute confidence. Their teardrop-shaped craft moved in perfect formation, weapons primed. To them, this lone human vessel was nothing more than an annoyance to be swept aside. They're charging weapons, Ben reported from his tactical station. Activate defensive systems only, Frank ordered. Let them fire first. The lead Vrax fighter launched a barrage of energy pulses. Under normal circumstances, such an attack would cripple a human vessel. But as the pulses approached the Defiance, they encountered the ship's navigational deflectors. In reality, a revolutionary shield system that absorbed the energy completely. No damage, Olivia reported with a grin. Shields holding at 100%. Frank nodded. Now it's our turn. Mr. Sullivan, activate the gravity manipulation system. Setting 3. Setting 3, aye, Ben replied, his fingers dancing over the controls. Outside, the space around the Vrax fighters seemed to ripple. Suddenly, their perfect formation broke apart as invisible forces pulled at their ships from multiple directions. 3 fighters collided with each other, their hulls crumpling. 2 more spun out of control, engines flaring as they tried to escape the gravitational trap. By the stars, whispered Jack Collins, it actually works. The remaining fighters retreated hastily. The Defiance had not fired a single conventional weapon, yet had disabled more than half of the Vrax squadron in seconds. The Vrax dreadnought is hailing us, Heather announced. On screen, Frank ordered. The bridge view screen filled with the image of a Vrax commander, tall, gray-skinned, with 4 glowing yellow eyes that blinked in alternating pairs. Human vessel, the commander hissed. You have violated Confederation weapons restrictions. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Frank stood from his chair. This is Captain Frank Miller of the Earth vessel Defiance. We have violated no restrictions. Our systems are fully compliant with Confederation regulations as written. Your ship used illegal weaponry against our fighters. We used a gravity manipulation system classified as a navigational tool. If your pilots were caught in it, that was their error. Frank's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. Return to your territory. The Sol system is under human protection. The Vrax commander's skin flushed dark purple with rage. This is not over, human. The transmission cut off abruptly. They're pulling back, Ben announced with surprise. The entire battle group is changing course. A cheer went up among the bridge crew, but Frank raised his hand for silence. They're retreating to regroup and report. This is just the beginning. He was right. Within 24 hours, the Galactic Confederation Security Council called an emergency session. The main chamber of the Confederation headquarters on neutral Vega Prime filled with representatives from all member species. Humans were seated in the lowest tier, reflecting their junior status. Diplomatic Lees and Sean Parker represented Earth at the session. He was young for such responsibility, with short red hair and freckles that made him look even younger, but his mind was sharp and his knowledge of Confederation law impeccable. The human vessel used illegal weapons of mass destruction, bellowed the Vrax representative, Supreme Commander Kraz Full. They must be sanctioned immediately. Sean stood calmly. We request that the Vrax delegation specify exactly which weapons regulations were violated. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. The Vrax had expected denials or excuses, not this direct challenge. The gravity weapon, Krasful finally sputtered. The Defiance carries no gravity weapon, Sean replied. It carries a gravity manipulation system registered and classified as a navigational tool under Section 47B of the Technology Classification Treaty. I have the registration documents here. He projected the documents for all to see. As you can observe, every system on the Defiance is properly registered and classified according to Confederation regulations. Behind the scenes, engineer Olivia Martinez continued her work on the Defiance, which had returned to the lunar shipyards for completion. With each passing day, she found new ways to enhance the ship's capabilities while maintaining technical compliance with the rules. Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Grace Thompson made a disturbing discovery as she analyzed historical treaty documents. In her small office beneath the Pentagon, she compared the original regulations with their current versions. "They've been manipulating us all along," she murmured as the pattern became clear. The elder species had carefully crafted the regulations to prevent younger races from developing technologies that could challenge their dominance, all while presenting the rules as fair and universal. The evidence Grace Thompson uncovered spread quickly through Earth's leadership. Documents showed how elder species had systematically created regulations that appeared fair, but actually prevented younger races from developing advanced technologies. The Vracs had been the main architects of this deception. "This changes everything," Admiral Donovan said during an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. "We're not just building a ship anymore. We're challenging a rigged system." "The Defiance is ready for its full test run," Alan Russell reported. "All systems are online and integrated. Then it's time to show the galaxy what we can do," said General Sam Wright. "But carefully. We don't want to start a war we can't win." 2 days later, the Defiance departed on what was officially called a shakedown cruise. Its true purpose was far more strategic, to demonstrate human capabilities to potential allies and enemies alike. Captain Frank Miller gathered his crew on the bridge before departure. "This mission is part diplomacy, part demonstration, and part exploration. We'll be traveling along the edge of human space, near territories of several species who have also suffered under Vrax dominance." Navigator Jack Collins had plotted their course through contested regions where the Vrax frequently bullied smaller powers. "Our path takes us through the Arcturus corridor, then past the Mirax refugee zones, and finally along the border of the Pellerin Confederacy. We expect to encounter Vrax patrols," Frank continued. "Our orders are to avoid conflict when possible, but to defend ourselves if attacked. And in doing so, we'll show everyone what this ship can really do." The Defiance slipped away from Earth with little fanfare. Its improved compression drive allowed it to reach speeds no human vessel had achieved before, crossing to the edge of the solar system in hours rather than days. As they passed Neptune's orbit, Tactical Officer Ben Sullivan noticed something on his sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures hiding in the Kuiper belt. Looks like Vrax scout ships. They're watching us," Frank observed. "Good. Let's give them something to report back." He ordered the ship to execute a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for its size. Tight turns, rapid accelerations, and sudden stops that demonstrated the precision of its systems. 3 days into their journey, the Defiance entered the Arcturus corridor. This narrow band of navigable space was controlled by the Vrax, who charged excessive security fees to any ships passing through. "Vrax control station ahead," Heather Lewis reported. "They're ordering us to reduce speed and prepare for inspection and payment processing." Frank smiled. Increase speed. Standard evasive pattern. The Defiance shot forward, easily outpacing the Vrax patrol vessels that scrambled to intercept it. The ship's navigational deflectors brushed aside warning shots as if they were nothing. "We've cleared the corridor," Jack announced proudly. "That's a 3-day journey completed in 7 minutes." Word of the Defiance's action spread quickly through subspace communications. By the time they reached the Mirax refugee zone, they were met not with hostility but with cautious hope. The Mirax were a feline species whose home system had been annexed by the Vrax decades earlier. Millions had flowed into a region of space too poor in resources for the Vrax to bother claiming. There, they survived in aging space stations and converted cargo ships. "Captain," Heather called out urgently, "I'm picking up distress signals from the refugee fleet. They're under attack. Vrax destroyers are demanding they surrender individuals accused of sedition." Frank didn't hesitate. "Set intercept course, maximum speed." The Defiance arrived to find 3 Vrax destroyers surrounding a cluster of civilian vessels. The refugee ships were old and defenseless, their shields already failing under Vrax weapons fire. "Open a channel to all vessels," Frank ordered. This is Captain Frank Miller of the Earth ship Defiance. Vrax vessels, cease your attack on civilian targets immediately. The Vrax commander appeared on screen, mandibles clicking in amusement. Human, this is not your concern. These criminals have spread lies about the Confederation. Leave now or be destroyed. Frank nodded to Ben. Mr. Sullivan, activate the gravity manipulation system. Full dispersal pattern. Yes, sir. Ben replied, eager to test the system's full capabilities. Outside, space itself seemed to warp around the Vrax ships. Their weapons fire curved away from the refugee vessels. Then, as the system reached full power, the destroyers began to shudder as localized gravity fields pulled at different parts of their hulls in opposing directions. Their structural integrity is failing, Ben reported with satisfaction. The Vrax destroyers retreated with significant damage, their crews shocked by the Defiance's display of power. As they limped away, the Mirax refugee ships approached the human vessel cautiously. We are receiving a transmission from the lead Mirax ship, Heather announced. A feline face appeared on screen, golden eyes wide with wonder. Human vessel, I am Elder Mirzak of the Mirax displaced fleet. You have saved many lives today. We offer our deepest thanks. We were glad to help, Frank replied. The Vrax have bullied smaller species for too long. Elder Mirzak's ears flicked forward with interest. Your ship, it disabled Vrax destroyers without firing a single energy weapon. Such technology could change the balance of power in the Confederation. That's what we're counting on, Frank said. To everyone's surprise, Elder Mirzak requested permission to come aboard with a small delegation. Security Chief Nicole Foster was not pleased with the idea. She was tall and stern, with short blonde hair and a perpetual frown. Captain, we know nothing about these aliens, she protested. They could be gathering intelligence for the Vrax. The Mirax have suffered more under Vrax rule than almost any species, Frank countered. I believe they're sincere. When the Mirax delegation arrived, they brought more than just gratitude. Elder Mirzak presented Captain Miller with Mirax technical data, advanced sensor designs that could enhance the Defiance's already impressive capabilities. Our engineers have developed these in secret, Mirzak explained. They comply with Confederation regulations because they are classified as scientific equipment, not military technology. We offer them freely to those who would stand against Vrax oppression. Over the next week, representatives from 6 other species sought out the Defiance, each bringing technical innovations that had slipped through regulatory loopholes. The Pellerin brought crystal matrices that improved energy efficiency. The Drell offered gravity lens technology that enhanced the ship's manipulation systems. The Sovan, insectoid beings known for their mathematical brilliance, provided algorithms that optimized the compression drive. The Defiance became more than just a warship. It evolved into a floating embassy for species tired of Vrax dominance. Security Chief Foster struggled to maintain order as the ship's crew mingled with dozens of alien visitors. This is a military vessel, not a conference center, she complained to Frank in private. It's becoming something more important, he replied. The seed of a coalition. As alien engineers worked alongside human technicians to integrate their technologies, Captain Miller faced a difficult decision. The upgrades would take the Defiance beyond what Earth had authorized. He gathered his senior officers to discuss the situation. What we're doing is technically rogue activity, he admitted. Earth gave us permission for a demonstration cruise, not to form a multi-species military alliance. But they need to see the bigger picture, Olivia argued. The evidence shows the elder species have been holding us all back deliberately. Working together is the only way forward. The Vrax won't sit idle while we gather allies, Ben Sullivan warned. They're already calling for Earth to recall us and dismantle the ship. Back on Earth, the leadership was indeed divided. Admiral Donovan defended the Defiance's actions, while others feared provoking the more powerful Confederation species. Captain Miller has exceeded his authority, General Wright argued during a heated meeting. He's risking war. He's creating an opportunity, Patricia countered. For the first time, we have leverage. The debate was interrupted when their screens lit up with an emergency broadcast. The Vrak's Supreme Commander appeared, his 4 eyes glowing with fury. Attention, Government of Earth. Your rogue vessel has violated numerous Confederation protocols and attacked peaceful Vrak ships. You have 48 hours to surrender the vessel known as Defiance and all personnel involved in its creation. Failure to comply will result in your expulsion from the Confederation and appropriate military response. As the message ended, Admiral Donovan's private line beeped. It was a secure transmission from Captain Miller. Admiral, you've seen the Vrak's demands, Frank said without preamble. I'm formally requesting permission to continue our mission. We've formed a coalition of 7 species willing to stand with Earth against Vrak's dominance. Together, we can change the balance of power in the galaxy. Patricia looked at the faces of the other military leaders, many showing fear at the prospect of confronting the Vraks. Then she straightened her shoulders and made her decision. Permission granted, Captain, and help is on the way. The Vrak's ultimatum spread panic throughout Earth. News programs showed the massive Vrak's battle fleet gathering at the edge of the Sol system. 20 capital ships, including 3 dreadnoughts, each larger than anything humans had built before the Defiance. In Washington, D.C., Admiral Donovan entered a secure underground facility where Earth's highest leaders had gathered. Her uniform was crisp, her expression determined as she prepared to reveal a secret that had been kept even from most of the government. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, the Vraks believe they are facing a single vessel. They are mistaken. She activated a holographic display showing the far side of Earth's moon. The image zoomed in on what appeared to be ordinary craters, then penetrated beneath the surface to reveal hidden construction base. While everyone focused on the Defiance, we built more. Project Defiance was never about a single ship. It was about proving a concept and then replicating it. The hologram showed 12 vessels in various stages of completion, all based on the Defiance design but with subtle variations. 12 more warships, whispered the Secretary General. How did you keep this secret? Compartmentalization. Each facility believed they were building components for civilian infrastructure projects. Only when the parts came together did the truth become clear. Meanwhile, the Defiance and its makeshift coalition raced back toward Earth. Captain Miller had sent messages to each of the allied species, asking them to send whatever ships they could spare. One by one, they responded. 3 Mirax cruisers, outdated but still functional, joined them near Proxima Centauri. 5 Pellerin vessels, shaped like crystalline arrowheads, appeared at the rendezvous point in the TAS CD system. Drell, Sovan, and others contributed what they could, mostly smaller craft, but each modified with the same regulatory-compliant technologies that made the Defiance so effective. 27 ships. Tactical Officer Ben Sullivan reported after the last allies arrived. Against 20 Vrak's capital ships. The numbers don't tell the whole story, Frank replied. Our technology gives us an edge they don't expect. Communications Officer Heather Lewis approached the captain with a worried expression. Sir, we're receiving reports that the Vraks have deployed their fleet to Earth. They're demanding immediate surrender. Then we need to hurry, Frank said. Maximum speed to Earth. The small coalition fleet pushed their engines to their limits. For 3 days they traveled without rest, their crews working around the clock to prepare for the coming battle. When they arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they found the situation worse than feared. The Vrak's fleet had taken up position around Earth, their weapons trained on major cities. A blockade of smaller vessels surrounded the moon, cutting off the lunar shipyards. They're hailing us, Heather reported. The view screen showed the Vrak's Supreme Commander, Krasval. His gray skin had darkened to almost black with rage. Captain Miller, you have led your species to ruin. Your pathetic gathering of obsolete ships cannot stand against the might of the Vrak's hegemony. Surrender now, and we may spare your homeworld. Frank stood calmly. You've misjudged the situation, Commander. We are not here to surrender. At that moment, another communication came through, from Admiral Donovan. "Captain, your reinforcements are on the way. Operation Rising Phoenix is now active." On the far side of the moon, hidden bay doors slid open. One by one, 12 ships emerged, each similar to the Defiance, but with subtle improvements based on what had been learned from the original. As they appeared on sensors, gasps of surprise came from both the human coalition fleet and the Vrax vessels. No one had expected Earth to have produced an entire fleet of the revolutionary ships. "The Vrax fleet is breaking formation," Ben reported. "They appear to be confused." "They should be," Frank said with a grim smile. "Their intelligence told them we had one special ship. Now they face 13. Olivia Martinez approached the captain with an urgent report. "Sir, the dimensional anchor is now stable. We can deploy it at your command." "Excellent work," Frank replied. "Prepare to activate on my order." He opened a channel to all Earth ships. "This is Captain Miller to Phoenix Fleet. Take defensive positions around Earth. Prepare to activate dimensional anchors on my mark." The 13 human vessels moved with precision, forming a web around the planet. The smaller Allied ships filled gaps in the formation. The Vrax commander's voice bellowed across the communication channels. "What is the meaning of this? You cannot hope to defeat us." Frank's expression was calm but resolute. "We don't need to defeat you, Commander. We just need to trap you." The Battle of Seoul began with a single shot from a Vrax dreadnought, fired in panic rather than strategy. The massive energy beam streaked toward the Defiance, only to be caught by the ship's advanced shields and redirected harmlessly into space. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Omega," Frank ordered calmly. "Precision strikes only." The 13 human vessels moved with perfect coordination, their systems linked through secure channels developed by the Sovan allies. Each targeted specific weapons emplacements on the Vrax ships, using their gravity manipulation systems to crush turrets and missile launchers without damaging the vessel's life support or engines. "The Pellerin squadron is taking heavy fire," Heather reported as the battle intensified. "Divert the Defiance to support them," Frank commanded. The Defiance swept past 3 Vrax cruisers, its compression drive allowing it to move at speeds the enemy targeting systems couldn't track. As it passed, it created localized gravity distortions that bent the Vrax energy beams back upon themselves. From the lunar surface, Alan Russell and Admiral Donovan watched the battle unfold with tense expressions. "It's working," Alan said quietly. "The technical compliance with regulations is giving us an edge they never anticipated." Patricia nodded. "Not just an edge in weapons, but in allies. Look at how the coalition fights together." Indeed, the smaller Allied vessels were proving just as effective as the human ships in their own ways. The Murax cruisers used their advanced sensors to detect vulnerabilities in Vrax shields. Drill ships deployed energy-absorbing nets that drained Vrax weapons fire. Even the tiny Sovan vessels contributed, using precision jumps to confuse enemy targeting systems. Aboard the Defiance, Engineer Olivia Martinez monitored the ship's systems with growing concern. "Captain, the dimensional anchors are drawing more power than expected. We can maintain them for another 20 minutes at most." Frank knew they needed to end this quickly. He opened a direct channel to the Vrax flagship. "Supreme Commander Krasvul, this is Captain Miller. Your fleet is trapped and your weapons are being systematically disabled. You cannot win this battle." The Vrax commander's face appeared on screen, his once proud posture now rigid with rage and fear. "This is impossible. Your technology cannot be this advanced." "But it is," Frank replied steadily. "And all of it complies with Confederation regulations as written. You created rules with loopholes, and we found them. Now you have a choice. Withdraw your forces and agree to fair negotiations, or face destruction from weapons you cannot counter." For several long moments, there was silence. Then, across the battlefield, Vrax weapon systems powered down one by one. "We accept your terms," Krasvul said, his voice hollow with defeat. 3 days later, the Galactic Confederation convened an emergency full session. Representatives from all member species attended, but the traditional hierarchy was noticeably absent. Younger races sat alongside elder ones as equals for the first time. Diplomatic Lees and Sean Parker presented Earth's proposal. The recent conflict has exposed fundamental flaws in how our Confederation regulates technology. We propose a complete revision of the Charter, with all species contributing equally to the new framework. The debate lasted for weeks, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. The demonstration of human ingenuity, coupled with the revelation that elder species had been manipulating regulations, shifted the balance of power permanently. Back on Earth, Commander Alan Russell and Admiral Patricia Donovan stood in the newly expanded Luna Naval Yards. Before them stretched the framework of a massive new vessel, larger than the Defiance, but built with the same principles. The Unity, Patricia said, reading the name being painted on the half-completed hull. A fitting name for the first ship built under the new charter. And this time, we're not doing it alone, Alan added, gesturing to the diverse group of engineers working on the vessel. Humans alongside Marax, Pelleran, Drell, and others. Throughout the shipyard, alien engineers studied human innovation with a mixture of fear and respect. Many still couldn't quite believe how a species so new to the galactic community had managed to change everything so quickly. At the main entrance to the facility, workers installed a large plaque that would greet all visitors. Its message was simple but profound. U.S. Defiance, too strong to be legal, until it changed the law. On the other side of the galaxy, a young Vrax engineer studied the reports from the Battle of Sol with growing excitement rather than the anger his elders showed. He understood something they did not. The humans hadn't just beaten the Vrax. They had shown the entire galaxy a new way of thinking.